the king with a heart of stone. Egypt, several centuries before Christ, was the greatest nation on earth.
The king with a heart of stone.
And now, throughout the world, as monarchs, ruling with ruthlessness and absolute power. Glittering adornments, rich paintings, and sculptured images of Egyptian gods lined the lordly halls and lofty columns of the king's palace. Amid all this beauty and splendor sat the cruel king Amenhotep, ruling from his golden throne an industrious, ambitious people. In his egotistical mind, the king was certain that he was favored of the gods and that his rule would never end.
Baker, bring more cakes or I'll get a new baker. Butler, more meat. This is living. Good things to eat. Endless entertainment. The gods are good to me.
Were you addressing me, Your Majesty?
I was really observing how great a king I am. The greatest king ever to rule over the greatest nation on earth.
Long live the king.
Long live the king. Back to your feasting, everyone. Yes, Lucky, don't just stand there. What do you want?
Ambassadors seek an audience with His Majesty.
Ambassadors?
2 of them, Your Majesty.
Whom do they represent?
Oh, the King of Kings.
King of Kings? Never heard of him. What country does he rule over?
Ambassadors didn't say, Your Majesty.
That's odd. The king about whom I've never heard.
I'll tell them to go away.
You do nothing of the sort.
Yes, Your Majesty.
It'll be interesting talking to them, finding out just who this King of Kings is. Audience granted. Show them in.
Yes, Your Majesty.
Quiet! This is not a banquet room. This is my throne room. Clear this room. I am about to give audience.
Ambassadors from the King of Kings to see His Majesty, great and mighty monarch of all Egypt.
You may come forward. Long live the king. Arise. You are ambassadors from the King of Kings?
Yes, Your Majesty.
And the King of Kings rules where?
The universe, Your Majesty.
The universe?
By right of creation, he rules the entire universe. By his might, all things exist.
He doesn't rule Egypt. I do.
As ambassadors of the King of Kings, in his name, in the name of Jehovah, we request that you let the Israelites go to the wilderness, that they may hold a feast unto him.
Who is Jehovah that I should obey him? I know not Jehovah, neither will I let Israel go.
The God of Israel met with us and requested that we come into thy presence, O king, seek permission for the Israelites to go 3 days' journey into the desert and there sacrifice unto the Lord our God. If perchance, O king, you refuse to let Israel go, the Lord will bring disaster upon you and upon your people. All the firstborn of the land will die.
I know who you really are. You're Moses. And you're his brother Aaron. You can't scare me. I've heard how you're exciting my slaves and hindering them in their work. You've caused them to cease their labors and rest 1 day out of every 7. I forbid you to ever interfere in my affairs again. Lucky, throw these men out. Out, do you hear?
God to the king.
General! General, come here, General.
Yes, Your Majesty. At your service, Your Majesty.
You know the 2 men who are just here?
Moses and Aaron? Yes, Your Majesty.
I think that they're trying to arouse the Israelites to revolt from my service. What do you think?
That could very well be, Your Majesty.
This affection is the result of idleness. I'll see that they have no more time for dangerous scheming. I'll tighten their bond and crush out their independent spirit. Right. Issue orders yet today to the taskmasters that the Israelite slaves are not to be furnished any more straw to make bricks. They will gather the straw themselves wherever they can find it. Yet they are to make as many bricks as before.
This order brought much distress among the Israelites. And because they were unable to produce as many bricks as before, the Israelite officers were cruelly beaten. At the command of God, Aaron and Moses once again entered the lordly halls of the king.
O king, great and mighty monarch of all Egypt, Jehovah, the Lord of hosts, requests that you permit his people to journey 3 days into the wilderness to worship and sacrifice unto him. You claim that the King of Kings, the God of Israel, is an all-powerful God and rules by right of creation? Yes, your majesty.
Prove it. Prove that he is all-powerful.
Prove it by some miracle.
Your majesty, you see the rod Moses carries, the common shepherd's rod?
Of course I see it. Watch it closely. I take it in my hand and drop it to the floor, like this.
A snake. Yes, Moses' rod has turned into a snake. A live, wriggling snake.
My wise men and sorcerers can do that. My magicians are just as powerful as you.
You claim to be ambassadors of an all-powerful God.
You're imposters. You're not ambassadors of a superior being. Get out of my sight. I will not let Israel go into the wilderness and worship their God.
The overflowing of the river Nile was a source of food and wealth for the Egyptians, and the river was therefore worshipped as a god. As usual, the king went to the banks of the Nile the next morning for his daily worship and devotions.
Greetings, your majesty. How did you get here? Know you not that this is the time of my private devotion? Our king sent us, your majesty. You are to repeat the request that you grant permission for the Israelites to go into the wilderness to worship and sacrifice to their God. No! Our God will bring a plague upon his majesty and upon Egypt. I will never let Israel go from their labors. Then at the command of God, I stretch out my rod and turn all the waters of Egypt into blood.
Moses stretched out the rod, and immediately the sacred river Nile ran blood. The fish died, and the river became offensive to the sense of smell. For 7 days this plague continued, and still Pharaoh's heart was like stone. He would not let Israel go. Again Moses stretched the rod over the river. This time frogs came up from the river and spread over the land. Frogs overran the houses, took possession of the bedchambers and the baking ovens. Frogs swarmed even the palace of the king.
Frogs! Frogs! I can't stand them. Get rid of them.
But how, your majesty? They're considered sacred. We dare not kill them.
Send for my magician. Get rid of these frogs. That's an order.
Your majesty, we can produce frogs, but we cannot get rid of them.
You claim to be all-powerful.
We are, but these frogs, your majesty, being sacred, are beyond our power.
Send for Aaron and Moses. I'll humble myself and beg them to remove the frogs. I beg of you, Moses, get rid of these frogs. I will let your people go, that they may do sacrifice unto the Lord their God.
At the command of Moses and Aaron, God caused the offensive frogs to die, but their putrid bodies remained, polluting the atmosphere. But when Pharaoh saw there was respite from the frogs, he hardened his heart.
Let the Israelites go? Never.
Again, at the command of God, Aaron and Moses lifted up the rod, and the dust of the earth turned into life.
Magician, I command you, duplicate this trick of Moses. Turn dust into life as he did. We will try, Your Majesty. Impossible, Your Majesty. We cannot turn dust into lice. Only the God of creation can do that.
The magicians are right, Your Majesty. Only the God of creation can produce life. It is this God that the Israelites wish to worship in the wilderness.
No, they cannot go.
Another judgment will be visited upon you, O king, unless you let Israel go into the wilderness.
Appeal all you wish. Make threats. My slaves cannot leave.
Then, O king, I pronounce the next judgment upon you and upon Egypt. At exactly noon tomorrow, large and venomous flies, whose bite will be painful to man and beast, shall swarm over Egypt, except that they shall not come nigh unto Goshen, where God's people dwell.
At the exact appointed time the next day.
I can close that window.
It is closed, Your Majesty.
Hold all these flies. Get in here.
It's the curse pronounced upon us by Moses and his brother Aaron.
What time is it?
Noon, Your Majesty. Exactly noon.
Just as he said it'd be. How do you account for it, magician? Only a god could do such a thing, Your Majesty. You suggest that perhaps Moses and Aaron actually do represent a god? A god who creates and controls things? There is no other explanation, Your Majesty. If that actually be true, I'll have to let the Israelites go, else sooner or later their God, through Moses and Aaron, will do all manner of things. Perhaps even destroy Egypt. And me. Exactly, Your Majesty. Lackey, find Moses and Aaron. Ask them to come here as soon as possible. Arise. I sent for you, Moses. You and Aaron to, These flies are unbearable. If I permit you and your people to worship your God, you can and will get rid of these flies?
God can and will. Yes, Your Majesty.
All right. I give permission for my slaves to worship and sacrifice to their God right here in Egypt. No need for them to go 3 days' journey into the wilderness.
Were we to sacrifice here in Egypt, sacrifice the animals you and your people consider sacred, we would be stoned to death. According to your law, to slay even one sacred animal is a crime punishable by death. No, Your Majesty, we cannot accept such an offer. We must be permitted to go into the wilderness and there worship and sacrifice.
All right. Permission is granted. You may take my slaves 3 days' journey into the wilderness. Only I beg of you, get rid of these flies.
God will remove the plague of flies. However, Your Majesty, I must warn you against dealing deceitfully with us.
Remove these flies, and the Israelites may go and worship their God. I promise.
The plague of flies was removed, but the king, whose heart had become hardened by persistent rebellion, refused to keep his promise.
It doesn't make any difference what I promised. My slaves cannot leave. That is final.
When Aaron and Moses were informed that the king had changed his mind and would not let the children of Israel go into the wilderness to worship God, they brought yet another plague upon Egypt. All the sacred animals and beasts of burden of Egypt were destroyed. Still the king was obstinate.
No, they cannot go.
Has my king considered the effect of all this on his land and his people?
I refuse to be persuaded.
I understand, Your Majesty.
A wise ruler has to harden his heart against what people will think. He has to do what he knows is best.
The king is a very wise ruler.
Of course I am.
Moses was next instructed to sprinkle ashes toward heaven in the sight of Pharaoh. The fine particles of ashes spread over all the land of Egypt, and wherever they settled, boils broke forth with blains upon man and beast. The priests and magicians were unable to stem this loathsome pestilence, and the nation, realizing that the priests and magicians could not protect even their own bodies, began to see the folly of trusting anyone representing lifeless gods of stone and wood. Still, the heart of Pharaoh grew harder.
I will not let him go. Never.
A plague of hail, accompanied by rain and fire, was next threatened upon Pharaoh.
An empty threat. Rain and hail are unusual here in Egypt. Never have we had fire from heaven.
But the storm came as predicted.
Aaron and Moses, I have sinned. The Lord is righteous. I and my people are wicked. Entreat your God to stop the mighty thundering and hail, and I will let you go, even into the wilderness, to worship and sacrifice unto your God.
As soon as I have gone out of your city, O king, I shall raise my arms, and the thunder and hail shall cease, so that all may know that the earth and all that in it is belongs to the Lord God of heaven.
Well,
As for you, O
cannot
king,
be absolutely
I know that you will harden your heart, for you care not what happens to your people. You will not let Israel go into the wilderness.
Moses and Aaron went forth from the palace, out into the storm, unheeding the fury of the tempest. And Pharaoh and all his court witnessed the power of Jehovah to preserve his messengers. Later, the king was warned that there would be another plague unless he softened his heart and permitted Israel to worship their God.
I cannot let the Israelites go. I will not.
Your Majesty, we are your counselors. We beg of you to reconsider, to soften your heart before it is too late.
No!
All our cattle are dead. Many of our people were killed by the hail. Forests are broken down. Crops destroyed. We are fast losing all that has been gained by the labor of these Israelites. The whole land is threatened with starvation.
I am king. I shall do as pleases me.
How long, O king, shall Aaron and Moses be a snare unto us? Let the men go. Let them serve their God. Know you not that Egypt is already destroyed?
All right. Send for Aaron and Moses. I will talk to them. If I let you go to serve your God, just who do you plan to take with you?
We will all go, your Majesty. Our little ones, our old people, our sons, our daughters, our flocks and herds. For we must hold a feast unto the Lord God of heaven.
Have you no love or regard for your women and children? It would be folly to take them to the wilderness. Or let your men go and serve your God, but leave your women and children here, where they are safe.
His Majesty pretends deep interest in the welfare of our women and children. His real object is to keep them here as surety for the return of the men.
How dare you talk to me like that? Get out! Get out!
Yet another plague, that of the locust, was visited upon the king and his people. Locusts filled the sky till the land was darkened, and devoured every living green thing. Again Pharaoh sent for Aaron and Moses, and again he promised to let the Israelites go into the wilderness. But once again, when the locusts had been taken away, Pharaoh hardened his heart and refused to keep his promise. The people of Egypt were ready to despair. the plagues that had already fallen upon them seemed almost beyond endurance, and they were filled with fear for the future. The nation had worshipped Pharaoh as a representative of their God, but many were now convinced that the God of Israel was the one and only true God. The Israelite slaves, so miraculously preserved during the plagues, were becoming confident of deliverance. Their taskmasters no longer dared oppress them. Throughout Egypt, there was a secret fear that the enslaved race would rise and avenge their wrongs. Everywhere, men were asking with bated breath,
What will come next?
Suddenly, a darkness settled over the land, a darkness so thick that it could almost be felt. Fear wrung from Pharaoh a further concession.
Go into the midst. Remove the darkness back, you may, and take your women and children with you. We will not go, okay, unless we take with us every head of cattle and sheep and everything that is ours.
You refuse to accept my offer? Yes, your majesty.
Get out! Get out of my sight, and never let me see you again, lest I order your immediate execution.
Thou hast spoken well, O king. We shall see your face no more.
Get out! Get out!
The king dared not actually harm Moses, for Moses was considered a great man by the Egyptians. They desired that the Israelites be permitted to leave Egypt. It was the king and the priests who opposed to the last the demands of Aaron and Moses. Moses and Aaron had been forbidden on pain of death to appear again before Pharaoh, but a last message from God was to be delivered to the hard-hearted monarch. So again, Aaron and Moses came before Pharaoh, this time with a terrible announcement.
Thus saith the Lord, about midnight will I go out into the midst of Egypt, and all the firstborn of the land of Egypt shall die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sitteth upon his throne, even unto the firstborn of the maidservant that is behind the mill, and all the firstborn of the beasts. And there shall be a great cry throughout all the land of Egypt, such as there was none like it, nor shall be like it any more. But none of the children of Israel shall die. That ye may know that the Lord doth put a difference between the Egyptians and the Israelites.
Suddenly, just at midnight, there was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not one home where the firstborn did not die. Even the firstborn of King Pharaoh died.
My son, would that I had not hardened my heart. You would still be alive.
The shrieks and wails of mourners filled the air. All Egypt stood aghast at the overmastering horde. King Pharaoh was reminded how he had once exclaimed,
Who is Jehovah that I should obey his voice and let Israel go? I know not Jehovah, neither will I let Israel go.
Jehovah must be the one and only true God. He has proved it by these miracles and plagues. I should have listened to Aaron and Moses. Oh, my son, my son. I am humbled before the God of heaven. Lackey, send for Aaron and Moses. Ask them to please come here. Thank you for coming, Aaron and Moses. I have sinned before your God and before you, and I plead with you. Rise up and get you forth from among my people. Take your women and children, your herds and flocks as you have requested. Go and serve the Lord your God before we are all dead men.
And thus it was that the king's heart of stone was melted. Before the break of day that morning, about 1 million men, women, and children, together with their herds and flocks, marched triumphantly out of Egypt on their way to freedom from slavery, free to serve and worship God according to the dictates of their conscience.
Dangers in the desert.
Back in the days when mighty kings called pharaohs ruled Egypt, there lived a race of slaves called Israelites. They won their freedom through the efforts of a man named Moses. He persuaded Pharaoh to let the Israelites leave Egypt to worship God. But Pharaoh did not keep his promise and took after the Israelites. Through mighty miracles of God, the Israelites were able to elude the pursuing Egyptian army. A great multitude of Israelites now stand on the eastern shores of the Red Sea, having just crossed on dry land. Triumphantly they stand ready to march on toward the promised land, the land of Canaan. Moses raises his ever-present shepherd's rod, gives a command, and once again the freed slaves are on the march, guided by the pillar of cloud. The scene about them was mostly dreary, desolate mountains, barren plains, and the sea stretching far away, its shores strewn with the bodies of their Egyptian enemies. Yet they were full of joy in the consciousness of freedom.
I will sing unto Jehovah, for he hath triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider hath he thrown into the sea. The Lord is my strength and my song, and he is become my salvation.
For 3 days they marched without finding any drinking water. As the supply they had brought with them was exhausted, there was nothing to quench their burning thirst.
I want a drink, Mommy. You poor child. It's a crime, that's what it is. Moses bringing us out here in the wilderness to die of thirst.
Don't blame Moses. He's following the pillar of cloud the same as we are.
Well, it's his fault. I wish I had stayed in Egypt. At least my children wouldn't be crying for water.
Just have faith. Everything will turn out all right.
I want a drink of water, Mommy. Just be patient, my darling. Somehow your mom will get you a drink.
Hey, listen. Listen to the people. There's water. Springs of water up ahead. At last we can quench our thirst.
Men, women, and children in joyous haste crowded to the springs. Suddenly a cry went up.
Stand back! Stand back! The water's bitter. It's not fit for drinking. Stand back! Stand back!
The water is bitter.
We can't drink it. I'll die of thirst.
Just be patient, sister. Moses will find a way.
Moses! Oh, he brought us here purposely to kill us. See? Everyone blames Moses for bringing us here to the wilderness to die.
In his grief at the distress of his people, Moses did what they had forgotten to do. He prayed earnestly to God for help. In answer to Moses' prayer, God showed him a tree, which, when Moses had cast into the springs, the water became sweet, and the people drank. Next, the Israelites camped at Elim on the border of the wilderness. They camped here several days before venturing into that hot, dry, sandy wasteland. When they had been absent exactly 1 month from Egypt, they made their first encampment in this wilderness.
Mommy, I'm hungry.
So am I. When do we eat?
Right now. Everything's ready, so gather round.
All right, quiet now. Quiet.
God of our fathers, we thank thee for the blessings of this food. We thank thee for thy love and care and protection. Amen. Be seated. All right, now let's start the lentils, please. Odessa, you may start the hominy.
There is no hominy.
What? Why, I thought it was understood that hominy was to be a regular evening meal dish.
It's all gone.
Well, why don't you replenish your stock?
I tried to, but there's none in the general storehouse. In fact, they're just about out of everything.
What are we going to do for food? We'll get hungry.
I'm not as much worried about us as I am the cattle. There's no grass or herbage in this wilderness. How can we possibly feed our huge flocks and herds?
We can't. They'll die.
And when they die, we'll be that much shorter of food.
We'll die too.
I wonder if any of you realize how much food it takes every day to feed 1 million people. Over 1 million.
Don't make it sound worse than it is, Eula.
How much, Eula?
I don't know, but tons and tons of it.
And the storehouse is about empty?
There's very little left. Nothing of some food, so they told me.
It's very serious, all right.
Eliab, why don't you say something? Don't you realize the seriousness of this situation?
Of course I do. But what is there to say?
How are we going to eat once all the food is gone?
I don't know. It's a serious problem, all right. I didn't complain too much when we were faced with the pursuing Egyptian army, or even when we ran out of water, but this food situation is different. I don't like to see our children go hungry, and I simply cannot understand how Moses expects to feed this vast multitude traveling through a wilderness.
Well, I think he's brought us out here to die of starvation.
Aren't we forgetting the mighty miracles God performed in our behalf on the shores of the Red Sea?
Even God can't supply food when there is none, Eula.
Nothing is impossible with God. Anyway, we haven't yet suffered from hunger. Our wants so far have been supplied.
Yes, but it's a future son that I'm worried about. I simply can't understand how Moses expects to feed this multitude traveling through the wilderness where there's no food.
Doubts began to fill Israel's hearts. Even the rulers and elders joined in complaining against Aaron and Moses.
I speak for all the people when I say, Moses, that it would have been better had we all died as slaves in Egypt. There, at least, we had plenty of good things to eat. Here, we starve. Our women and children suffer. You have brought us forth into this wilderness to kill us with hunger.
Moses' reply to this accusation and complaint was simple and to the point.
People of Israel, you have forgotten to trust in God.
No, we haven't.
You've forgotten your bitter service in Egypt.
Moses,
You have forgotten the goodness and power of God in your behalf when he delivered you from bondage.
we realize
You have forgotten how God spared your firstborn when the destroying angel slew all the firstborn of Egypt. You have forgotten the grand exhibition of divine power at the Red Sea. You see and feel only your present trials and inconveniences. You think about and talk only of the hardness of the way and wonder when your pilgrimage will be over. But the Lord has heard your murmurings, and he still loves you. He shall give you in the evening flesh to eat, and in the morning bread to the full.
At nightfall, the camp was surrounded by a vast flock of quail, enough to supply the entire company. In the morning, the ground was covered with a small, white, seed-like substance.
What is it?
It looks almost like snow.
Perhaps it's the bread Moses promised us.
He did say that in the morning we'd have bread to the full. I'll taste it and see if it's bread.
No, before we even touch it, we better ask Moses. I noticed lots of other people headed for Moses' tent, probably for the same reason. Come along.
People of Israel, the substance on the ground is manna, food put there by God's angels. It will be there every morning except the Sabbath day. You will gather each day about 3 quarts for each person. On Friday mornings, you will gather twice as much to last you over the Sabbath day. Prepare manna as you would wheat, and the taste of it will be as wafers made with honey.
From that day onward, for 40 years, Israel never lacked for food. The manna was always there every morning, except on the morning of the Sabbath. After leaving the wilderness of sin, the Israelites encamped in Rephidim. Here there was no water, and again the people distrusted the providence of God. Again they came before Moses, complaining and demanding water. At the command of God, and before the assembled multitude, Moses smote a rock with his rod, and immediately there gushed forth from the rock a stream of water. And the children of Israel did drink, and their thirst was quenched. A new and unexpected danger suddenly confronted the Israelites. The land through which they were now traveling was inhabited by a strong and warlike people called Amalekites. The king of Amalek was not ignorant of God or his sovereignty and power, yet he chose to defy God and to fight against him.
Lord King Amalek, great and mighty king, the Amalekites.
Arise, gentlemen. You are all trusted officers in my court. You know as well as I that our nation has never been considered one of the great nations of earth. We are scarcely even known beyond the borders of Egypt. That, gentlemen, will soon be a fact of the past. Soon Amalek will be the most powerful and greatest nation on earth, the position now occupied by Egypt.
Lord King.
How are we going to accomplish this? By a very simple process. We are going to defeat the Israelites, former slaves of the Egyptians. Do any of you have an idea why defeating the Israelite slaves will make us great?
If we can destroy Israel, it will prove that our God is stronger than their God. People fear and respect Israel because of their God. Once we prove our gods are even greater, then people will fear and respect us.
Even Egypt will. Our positions will be reversed. We will become great. Egypt will become weak.
Long live King Amalek, great and mighty king of all Amalek. Long live the king.
General, I want you to formulate a plan of attack against the Israelites. Report to me in the morning. And you, Prince Balaam, I want you to assemble all the people. They will take an oath to our gods to destroy the Israelites, so that not even one of them remains.
With our God so solidly behind us, Israel's God will be powerless to resist us.
Arise. Yes, General?
I have formulated a plan of attack against the Israelites, Your Majesty.
Yes?
I deem it wise, Your Majesty, to take it a little easy at first.
What do you mean, easy?
Well, Your Majesty, we've heard many things about the Israelites and their God. We know not what is true and what are lies. We have never had contact on the field of battle or off the field of battle with these slaves. So I suggest, Your Majesty, that we try to incur their anger, try to get them to attack us in our strongholds, or at least in places of our own choosing. Otherwise, we'll have to attack them in the open, along their line of march. Now, once we feel them out, know their strength and weaknesses. We can attack and destroy them at will.
Do you know how to incur their anger?
Yes, Your Majesty. We will attack and kill their old men and women, and those who are faint and weary. Nothing will make their leaders more angry than that.
They keep the women and children and old people segregated from the others?
No, Your Majesty, just those who can't keep up with the others. And they bring up the rear, taking their time, catching up with the main body of marchers after camp is made in the evening.
You plan on nibbling away at the enemy?
At first, yes, Your Majesty, with your permission.
Brilliant plan, General. Permission granted.
It is through this territory, occupied by these fierce and warlike Amalekites, that the Israelites are now passing. At the rear are those who are old and lame, and all others unable to keep up with the main body of marchers. Moses, of course, is at the head of the long column, leading his people. Suddenly, Joshua, a young man high in the council of Moses, pushes his way through the marchers and excitedly greets Moses.
Greetings, Moses, sir. Joshua. Moses, sir. The most terrible thing has happened, sir.
What is it, son?
The old and weary people in the rear have been pounced upon.
What?
It just happened, sir. I rushed to tell you the minute I heard about it.
Who did this?
The Amalekites, sir.
All those in the rear were killed?
Some of them may have survived, sir. I haven't checked yet.
We must get to them quickly. Aaron, stop the people! Make camp right here! Miriam! Get your young women and their bandages and go to the rear immediately. Joshua, you come along with me. Your young women are very efficient, Miriam.
Thank you. What are we to do with the infant?
They'll have to be carried until they recover enough to walk by themselves.
Yes, sir. I'll have Liberty then.
Joshua, what do you think of all this?
We should avenge these dead and wounded, sir.
Well, I wasn't referring to that, but since you mentioned it, you do believe we should take measures against the Amalekites.
Most definitely, sir.
We aren't prepared for battle. Our people are just a group of men, women, and children with no training whatsoever for war.
But, sir, we're on the right side, and right always prevails.
Does it, Joshua?
Yes, sir.
Are you sure about that?
Doesn't it, sir?
Well, sometimes evil and wickedness seem to prevail, and perhaps it does for a time, but in the final end, right and justice prevail.
Then we will make war on these Amalekites?
Well, have you thought it over? Thought of an actual plan of attack?
Yes, sir. Robust and healthy, ambitious and fearless young men should be chosen from each tribe and led against the Amalekites.
But Joshua, fearlessness and brawn don't win battles, you know.
No, sir, but, sir, you are one of the greatest military geniuses of all time. You must know that the enthusiasm and energy generated from belief in the cause for which one fights is a substitute for training and experience, and frequently does bring victory.
Sometimes.
Well, then, too, sir, God is on our side, and with God on our side, we cannot lose.
Joshua, my son, choose as many young men from each of the tribes as you deem necessary. Tomorrow you will lead them in battle against the Amalekites.
But, sir, I'm not a military leader. I have no training or experience whatsoever.
But you do have faith in God, my son, and you rely completely upon Him. There is nothing that better qualifies you for any position or task in the world than that.
Early the next morning,
Everything's in readiness, sir.
You know where the enemy is camped?
Yes, sir. The scouts reported back with complete information. And, sir, there is a hill nearby from which you can watch the battle.
I'll take Aaron and her with me. We will pray while you and your men fight.
Yes, sir.
So Moses, Aaron, and Hur stood on the hill nearby, with arms outstretched toward heaven and holding the rod of God in his right hand. Moses prayed for the success of the armies of Israel.
O God in heaven, I beseech thee to give Joshua and his brave young men success. Avenge the wrong done to our old men and women and the weary. The Amalekites sinned a great sin against thee, O God. We have desecrated thy
Tiring,
holiness.
Moses lowered his right hand, and immediately Joshua and his men began to lose. It was soon discovered that as long as Moses kept his arms outstretched, Israel won. And when they were lowered, the Amalekites won. Aaron and Hur supported the arms of Moses until the going down of the sun, when the enemy was put to flight. The terrible thing that the Amalekites had done was avenged. Not far distant from where Israel was now camped was the home of Jethro, the father-in-law of Moses. Jethro had heard about the marvelous things that happened to Israel on their way from Egypt, and now he set out to visit them and to restore to Moses his wife and 2 sons.
How soon will we see Father?
It won't be long now, son. Just be patient.
Moses was informed by messenger of their approach, and he went out with joy to meet them. He had sent back his family when on his way to the perils of leading Israel out of Egypt, but now he could once again enjoy the relief and comfort of their society.
There's nothing quite so comforting in this world as a wife. A good wife and children and home, the proper kind of home, is a spot of heaven right here on earth.
I love you, Moses.
And that very thing, love, is the ingredient from which a real home is made.
From what we've heard, you love the Israelites, every one of them.
Yes, Zipporah, I do.
How have you been getting along with them, Moses?
Fine, Zipporah. They're wonderful people.
We heard that they've complained, that they even rose up in rebellion against
Oh,
you.
they have, I guess, but they didn't mean it. They're like little children, easily discouraged and hurt, but they forget quickly and they forgive quickly, too.
You know what I think, Moses?
What?
I think you're the greatest leader, the greatest teacher, the greatest and most loved man that God ever created.
From Rephidim, the people continue their journey, following the leading of the pillar of cloud. Often, as they had traversed the sandy wastes, they had seen before them rugged mountains, like huge bulwarks, piled up directly across their course, seeming to form a solid wall against further progress. But now, as they approached, openings here and there appeared in the mountain wall, and beyond, another plain opened to view. Through one of these deep, gravelly passes, the cloud now led them. It was a grand and impressive sight. Between the rocky cliffs, rising hundreds of feet on either side, flowed a living tide as far as the eye could see, the host of Israel with their flocks and herds.
It's a beautiful view. Mountains, valleys,
But mainly people.
people as far as one can see. People on their way to freedom, to the land of promise.
Before them now appeared a majestic mountain.
What mountain is it?
I don't know, but it's the most impressive and beautiful mountain I've ever seen. It's Mount Sinai. Sinai, the mountain of God.
The pillar of cloud came to rest on the summit of Mount Sinai, and the people spread their tents upon the plain below. Here, at the foot of Mount Sinai, was to be Israel's home for nearly a year. The dawn next morning gilded the dark ridges of the surrounding mountains, and the sun's golden rays pierced the deep gorges, seeming to the weary Israelites like beams of mercy from the very throne of God. On every hand, vast, rugged heights seemed in their solitary grandeur to speak of eternal endurance and majesty. Here the mind was impressed with solemnity and awe. Here man felt his ignorance and weakness, acknowledging the might and justice of God. I will praise thee, O Lord, with my whole heart. I will be glad and rejoice in thee, for thou hast maintained my right and my cause. Thou hast destroyed the wicked, but thou hast not forsaken them that seek thee, nor forgotten them that love thee. I will sing praises unto thee, O God, Lord of heaven.
Here, at the foot of Mount Sinai, Israel was to receive the most wonderful revelation ever made by God to man. Here at Mount Sinai, man was to receive the law that was forever to be the basis of human conduct and the foundation of all civil laws and behaviors. Here, God was to make manifest his character. Here, by his finger on tablets of stone, God was to write the 10 Commandments.
Miriam the Great.
This is the story of a great woman, a woman who had strength and character, a woman who had had all the advantages of life, a woman who knew power and honor, a respected woman, yet she yielded to temptation and sin. The Israelites, under the leadership of Moses, had escaped Egypt and, by miracles of the Most High God, had made their way to Mount Sinai, where they remained for nearly a year. Here their worship had taken definite form, and a more efficient organization had been effected, preparatory to their entrance into the land of Canaan. God himself directed the Israelites in all their travels. The place of their encampment was indicated by the descent of the pillar of cloud, and so long as they were to remain in camp, the cloud rested over the sacred tabernacle. When they were to break camp and continue their journey, the pillar of cloud lifted high above the tabernacle. At last, after almost a year at Mount Sinai, the cloud lifted high in the heavens.
And when the cloud above the tabernacle is lifted.
Oh, at last, we're to move on towards the promised land. It's only 11 days' march to Kadesh on the borders of Canaan. Then home to the land of promise.
Why, you sound happy about it.
I am. Soon we will be home in the land of milk and honey. Aren't you happy, I mean?
We've been here so long, it's almost like home. Look out there at Mount Sinai. Oh, it's a beautiful sight, Aaron.
Well, I'll admit that I love to look at the peaks and barren ridges of Mount Sinai, where divine glory has so often been displayed. The scene reminds me that this place is closely associated with God and holy angels. I don't think we should leave with pompousness and gladness, yet we should be happy that God is leading us on to the promised land.
Well, I still say this seems like home to me.
Oh, you women, sentimental and emotional. But I must linger. I must see that everything is prepared to move on.
At last, everything was in readiness to march forward. At the head were Moses and Aaron, accompanied by priests bearing silver trumpets. Next came the 12 tribes, each marching in order under its own banner. The marchers stood still, all eyes turned anxiously to see in which direction the pillar of cloud would move. As usual, a solemn invocation by Moses marked the occasion.
Rise up, Lord, and let thine enemies be scattered, and let them that hate thee flee before thee. Amen.
I wonder which direction the pillar of cloud will lead us.
The north, toward Canaan, of course.
It's moving.
Moses is signaling the trumpeters.
Facing ugly mountain passes and stony paths, the people experienced a feeling of sadness and doubt. As they advanced farther and farther, the way became more and more difficult. Soon the rocky gorges far and near were thronged with men, women, and children, with beasts and wagons, long lines of flocks and herds. Their progress was slow and toilsome, hard. The people, after their long encampment at Mount Sinai, were unprepared to endure the perils and hardships of the way. After 3 days of hard, wearisome travel, they arrived at Tabersh. Many of them crossed, dissatisfied, complaining. As usual, when Israel stopped to camp, Moses pronounced his solemn invocation.
Return now, O Lord, unto these many thousands of Israelites, thy chosen people.
By this time, the dissatisfaction and complaining had spread to the entire multitude. When Moses heard of it, he was sore distressed and went to the Lord in prayer.
O Lord of the Most High, God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, wherefore hast thou afflicted me? Wherefore have I not found favor in thy sight, that thou layest upon me the burden of all these complaining people alone? It is too heavy for me. Grant unto me help, O Lord, that thy people may be led into the paths of righteousness, according to thy holy will.
The Lord hearkened to Moses' prayer and directed him to choose 70 men of the elders of Israel as counselors and helpers.
You men standing before me have been chosen for a special task. You are advanced in years. You possess dignity, sound judgment, and experience. I myself have chosen you by permission of God. You will share with me the responsibility of governing Israel.
There was at least one person in that great multitude who was not happy about Moses selecting those 70 elders. It was a woman, a jealous, envious woman. 2 brothers and a sister, Moses, Aaron, and Miriam, had been given high honor by God. They were the leaders of Israel. Aaron and Miriam, along with Moses, had been endowed with the prophetic gift, and all 3 had been closely associated in delivering Israel from Egypt. Richly endowed with the gifts of poetry and music, Miriam had led Israel in song and praise on the shore of the Red Sea. Far over the sea and desert had rung the joyous refrain.
Sing ye to Jehovah, for he hath triumphed gloriously. Egypt's horse and rider hath he thrown into the sea. The deeps cover her. The Lord is my strength and my song, and he is become my salvation. This is my God, and I will exalt him. I will praise him.
There came a time, however, when the same evil that brought discord in heaven sprang up in the heart of Miriam. It happened during Israel's encampment at Rephidim, before they had reached Mount Sinai. It was the first evidence of a jealous, envious Miriam.
Aaron, did you hear what Moses just did?
No, Miriam, what did Moses just do?
He appointed rulers over the people. A chief ruler or prince over each of the 12 tribes, and lesser rulers over thousands, hundreds, and even down to tens.
I don't see anything wrong with that. They can help in minor matters. It'll relieve a lot of responsibility from Moses, and you and me.
I don't mind the rulers being appointed. It's the way they were appointed.
How were they appointed?
Why, without our counsel and help.
Miriam, I believe you're jealous.
I am not. Well, you and I share the responsibility equally with Moses of governing Israel. He should have consulted us, that's all.
He probably sought counsel from God.
Oh, no, he didn't. It was all Zipporah's doings.
Zipporah, Moses' wife?
You needn't act so shocked, Aaron. In spite of her so-called gentle and timid disposition, she's really a troublemaker, a busybody.
Why, Miriam.
These new rulers are her idea. She's trying to take away some of my power and discredit me with Moses.
That's hard to believe.
Well, it's true, Aaron. She went to her father. And
Jethro.
Jethro's her father, isn't he? Well, she went to him with her idea. And he went to Moses, and Moses appointed those rulers. So there you have it.
But Jethro's a priest and prince of Midian. He wouldn't do anything dishonest.
Oh, Zipporah's clever. Her father didn't realize the whole thing was a plan to discredit me.
Miriam, you're jealous of Zipporah.
I am not jealous of her.
Well, whether you are or not, your attitude is unhealthy. You should get it out of your mind. I'm your brother, Miriam, and I know what you're thinking about Zipporah isn't true. Now, I insist that you stop saying such things, even thinking them.
All right, Aaron, if you say so.
And so the jealousy and envy in Miriam's heart was brought under control by the strength of Aaron's advice. But that same envy was brought back into being again when Moses chose the council of elders at Tabish.
Did you know, Aaron, that Moses just got through appointing 70 elders as his council?
Yes, Miriam, I know all about it.
Well, certainly you don't approve.
Well, why not? They can be lots of help to Moses in administrating the law and judging the people.
You're not really happy about it, I can tell.
Well, I'll admit that I do think Moses should have consulted us in the appointment. On the other hand, we must remember that Moses has an important and great work to do. A greater work than any other man has ever been called upon to endure.
Oh, yes, I know all that, Aaron. I also know that you've been called to do a great work. You have the right to expect consideration by Moses in all things, especially such important things as the appointment of 70 elders to a council.
I wonder why Moses didn't consult me. Us.
Moses is ignoring us, Aaron.
Yes, but why?
He wants all the glory to himself. That's why. He and Zipporah.
Well, I don't think Zipporah had anything to do with this.
Well, I do. She's a Cushite woman, that's...
Zipporah?
Yes, Zipporah.
She's not a Cushite. She's a Midianite, a descendant of Abraham.
Well, she's not an Israelite. And Moses had no business marrying a foreigner. Well, he's the leader of Israel. He should have had enough national and family pride to have taken a wife from among the Israelites.
Zipporah's a nice woman, gentle, affectionate, long-suffering, and a good wife to Moses.
A good wife. Do you call deserting Moses when he most needed her being a good wife?
When did she desert him?
When he was on his way to Egypt. She turned around and went back to her mother, afraid to face the hardships of Egypt.
Well, I think that was Moses doing. I think he wanted to spare her the horror of witnessing the judgments that were to fall on the Egyptians.
Well, I have nothing but contempt for her.
Now, Miriam.
Well, why shouldn't I? She hates me. She influenced Moses to neglect me. And you too, Aaron.
Oh, I doubt that.
Since she joined us, Moses hasn't taken you and me to his conference as he did before. Now, has he?
Well, it doesn't seem like it.
Well, what are we going to do about it, dear brother?
Do?
We're certainly going to do something.
What?
Well, we have a right to share equally with Moses all the responsibilities and honor of governing Israel, don't we?
We were given that position, yes.
Well, don't you think that you're as efficient and capable as Moses?
I don't want to say.
I'm your sister, Aaron. You're so modest you can speak plainly to me.
Well, frankly, I think I have more natural ability than Moses ever had. He has to rely on God for his strength. I don't. And But I failed once, Miriam. I was weak. Had I been stronger, and held firmly to the right, I could have dissuaded the people from making the golden calf at the foot of Mount Sinai.
Everyone's entitled to at least one mistake, Aaron.
Well, yes, I guess you're right.
You agree with me then that Moses has neglected and ignored us,
Yes, he has.
and that his wife, that Cushite woman, should be banished from our midst?
Yes, Miriam, I share your jealousy.
Well, it isn't jealousy, Aaron.
Well, whatever.
It's just plain common sense, that's what it is.
I think we should have it out with Moses.
Two minds with the same thought. Come on, let's go.
Afternoon, Miriam. Aaron,
We want to talk to you, Moses.
I'm glad you do. The three of us seldom get a chance to talk.
You have got to get rid of that woman, Moses.
What woman?
She means Zipporah.
My wife.
She's a troublemaker, Moses. As long as she's in camp, God will not bless us.
And you neglect us, ignore us because of her.
We were chosen to lead our people out of Egypt and into the promised land.
We were given the gift of prophecy. We talk to God and he to us the same as he does to
We
you.
were all three chosen, Moses, on an equal basis to lead Israel.
But do you consider us your equal? You do not. You appoint elders. You judge the people. You do lots of things without even consulting either Miriam or myself.
It's all to our abilities and God-appointed responsibilities.
Well,
Disloyalty to me is disloyalty also to God.
Disloyal? Oh, Moses, it's you who are disloyal.
get rid of Zipporah, and all this evil will cease.
You have no business marrying a Cushite woman in the first place, Moses.
Wrath is cruel, and anger is outrageous, but who is able to stand before envy?
Oh, you mistake our motives, Moses. We are not envy.
Not a bit. It's just that Zipporah's a troublemaker. Get rid of her.
Where
and all-
envy and jealousy are, there is confusion and every evil work.
I can see that there's no use to even talk to you.
Of course not, Aaron. His wife has him wound around her little finger. Oh, she's a vicious one. And she certainly knows how to use all her...
Miriam, I bid you look toward the tabernacle and the pillar of cloud above the tabernacle.
It's moving.
What does it mean?
The cloud is disappearing.
Moses, what does it mean?
It's gone. Completely disappeared.
God is displeased with you, Aaron, you and Miriam, especially with you, Miriam.
What have I done?
You are a strong-willed woman, my sister. You have been richly endowed by God with many fine gifts and abilities. You stand high in the affections of our people. Yet dissatisfaction, envy, and pride have found their way into your heart. The pillar of cloud has disappeared from the tabernacle as a token of God's displeasure.
But I haven't done anything, Moses.
You, Aaron, had you stood firmly for the right, you might have checked the evil in Miriam's heart, but instead you sympathized with her, listened to her words of complaint until you shared her jealousy.
Miriam, you're white as snow.
God is punishing her. He has smitten her with leprosy.
No,
Leprosy.
no.
The wages of sin is death.
Oh, Moses, we have sinned. We have sinned against God and against you. I confess my sin and plead for forgiveness. In Miriam's punishment, I am severely rebuked. My pride is humbled, Moses, and I plead with you. Take away this leprosy from Miriam.
God brought it upon her. Only God can take it away.
Isn't there something you can do?
I can seek God in prayer and plead for clemency. O God of love and mercy, my sister and brother have sinned against thee, yet lay it not to their charge. If it please thee, O God, let me pay the penalty. Let me be cast from thy sight and thy love banish me from the mercies of thy long suffering. For am I not their keeper? I have failed them. Do unto me what pleases thee, O God. Only forgive Aaron and Miriam. Take from her this terrible scourge. Restore her to health. Bless her and keep her forever in the paths of righteousness.
And the Lord God of Israel heard the pleas of Moses and cleansed Miriam from leprosy.
It's a wonderful feeling, Moses, to be cleansed from a vile disease like leprosy.
It's even more wonderful, Miriam, to be cleansed from the loathsome disease of sin.
God has forgiven me.
Of course he has, Miriam. He's forgiven both of us.
Yes, God has forgiven you. Yet the penalty of sin must be paid. Miriam, you are the chief offender, so you must pay the penalty.
Death.
No. You confessed your sin and God forgave you. That erased the penalty of death. Eternal death.
Then why must she pay at all?
Had she cut off a finger, all the confession, sorrow, and forgiving in the world would not bring back that finger. So it is with sin. Once the sin is done, nothing can undo it. The penalty must be paid. Miriam brought suffering and dissatisfaction to many people by her complaining and jealousy.
Is there no way out, Moses? Anything I can do to erase the penalty?
True repentance of a sin should bring with it a willingness to pay the penalty.
All right, Moses. What is the penalty?
You are to be banished from the camp.
Banished from camp?
No, Moses. I'll die out there in the wilderness.
Look toward the tabernacle. The pillar of cloud is still absent. Until you have been banished from camp, Miriam, the symbol of God's favor will not again rest upon the tabernacle.
But Moses, banishment is a sentence of death.
I sinned, Aaron, and I must pay the penalty.
You will be banished from camp for 7 days. At the end of
7
which
days? Only 7 days?
you may return to camp on the 8th day.
But Moses, even 7 days in that wilderness for a woman is dangerous. There are wild beasts, all kinds of wild beasts, even lions.
I'll be all right, Aaron.
At nights, Miriam, where will you sleep? What will you eat? How will you protect yourself? What will you...
Don't worry about it, Aaron. God will take care of me.
But you're a woman that Yes, Miriam. You're right. God will take care of you if you trust him.
I trust him implicitly. I know that whatever happens to me out there in the wilderness will be God's will. If I perish, I perish.
Sorry, Miriam, but you must go now. God be with you.
Goodbye, Moses. Goodbye, Aaron. Goodbye.
May I have your attention, please? Please! My dear people of Israel, I have called you together to discuss a very important and vital item and to confess a grievous sin. As you know, Miriam has been banished from camp, but her sin is mostly mine. I could have prevented it, but I did not. I confess to that sin and ask your forgiveness. Now I want an expression from you. We can move on toward the promised land, or we can remain here, awaiting Miriam's return. What is your wish?
Let's wait for Mary. She's a great woman, and I want to wait for her.
What about the pillar of cloud, Aaron. If it moves on, we have to move on too, don't we? In this instance, the Lord God of Israel is awaiting your decision and will abide by it. Then, by all means, let us remain here.
But Aaron, have we any assurance that Miriam will return?
No.
After all, she is a woman. And the wilderness out there is a dangerous place, even for a man.
We can only hope and pray and wait. If she does not return on the 8th day, we must believe that it is God's will, and we will move on toward Canaan without her.
7 days passed. Very early on the 8th day, before it was yet light, Aaron arose from his bed and went outside.
Dawn is just breaking.
Good morning, Aaron.
You here too, Moses?
Yes, I too am anxious about Miriam. In fact, almost the entire camp is facing toward the wilderness, watching, waiting for the first sight of Miriam.
Do they really think that much of her?
Yes, she has won their sympathy and respect. They love her, Aaron.
Will she come back? Or will the wilderness claim her?
You can only wait, Aaron.
What is that? Listen. It's Miriam. She's alive. She's coming back. Did you hear that, Moses? Miriam's coming into camp.
Yes, I heard, Aaron. I will sing unto Jehovah, for he is my God. Praise be unto God. Our God has guided Miriam and kept her. Who is like unto him? Praise be unto God. Glory unto his name. He is my God. He will watch over and protect me. Jehovah is his name.
The Unfaithful Prophet. After having wandered in the wilderness for 40 years, the children of Israel are preparing to enter the promised land of Canaan. Under the leadership of Moses, the Israelites now leave the wilderness and are encamped in the plains of Moab. Now the people of Moab are afraid and tremble at the presence of the Israelites. Balak, their king, however, is a shrewd and fearless monarch.
But I don't fear the Israelites.
Then why did you send a message to the Midianites that we are in danger of being consumed by the Israelites?
Because it's true. Moses and his followers have already conquered the Ammonites, and
Does Majesty laughs at the humiliation and defeat of our neighbors?
why not? The land they lost to the Israelites, they wrested from me in the first place. They should lose it. Serves them right.
Now, the officers of your court are saying that you are afraid of a similar destiny.
At the hands of the Israelites?
That's what's being whispered, Your Majesty.
I do not fear what I understand. And I understand the Israelites. I know how to deal with them.
There are persistent reports that the Israelites use supernatural agencies in winning battle.
It is true. It is the Israelite God who exercises supernatural power in their behalf.
Well, certainly His Majesty does not contemplate using arms against supernatural power.
I know that arms are helpless against supernatural agencies. I intend to follow the example of Pharaoh of Egypt. Like him, I shall enlist sorcery to counteract the power of the Israelite God.
But Pharaoh failed. He and his entire army were drowned in the Red Sea.
I shall not fail. I shall not use an army. I shall use only one man. He shall bring a curse upon Israel.
Cursed by sorcery?
Israel shall be cursed by sorcery and defeated. Welcome to Moab, messengers from Midian. May your sojourn here be filled with sunshine and laughter, and success.
Greetings to Balaam, king of Moab. Hail to his majesty, may the gods smile upon him.
Hail, Balaam, king of Moab, long live the king.
We are come, your majesty, because we wish
You are come because I sent for you. Danger of extinction by the Israelites threatens your land as well as mine. We must join forces, work together, and forever stamp out the threat.
Oh, his majesty speaks with a wise tongue and a knowing heart.
Your country is prepared to cooperate.
Our king has authorized us to do whatever seems necessary to secure the safety of our country as well as yours, your majesty.
Well spoken.
His majesty has a plan.
Ordinary weapons and methods are useless against the supernatural power of the Israelites.
Granted, your majesty.
Therefore, I propose to use their own power against them. Supernatural power.
Oh, brilliant. If it can be done.
I know of a man who has the power to pronounce a curse upon Israel.
A man?
A man living in Mesopotamia. His fame and power as a sorcerer and magician has long since reached my ears.
But it is the Israelite God who wins battles for the Israelites, and a man in Mesopotamia against a God?
Your doubts and misgivings are well founded. However, this man, Balaam, is the man
Balaam?
Balaam. You've heard of him too?
Oh, his fame and abilities are well known in Midian.
Then you agree that he is the one man who can successfully curse Israel?
Well, I reserve judgment until I've heard your plan, sir.
It is simplicity itself. At one time, Balaam worshipped the God of Israel. He was God's prophet, his representative. Naturally, then, Balaam is well acquainted with the rites and ceremonies of the Israelite God. He knows the nature and source of their God's power. This knowledge, coupled with his powers of divination and sorcery, can bring about the end of Israel's supernatural power.
You say that this Balaam used to be God's prophet and representative.
That is exactly what I said.
Well, why isn't he now? What happened? Did Israel's God reject him? Desert him?
Balaam still claims to be God's chosen prophet. But my spies report otherwise. Balaam has apostatized. Contrary to God's commandment, Balaam covets. Greed and unholy ambition have caught up with him.
Greed is a marvelous agent of evil. It shall work to our advantage.
Exactly. Balaam loves money. For a price, he will do anything.
Even curse Israel.
Even curse Israel.
A very wise and clever solution to our dilemma.
Yes.
Yes.
So a delegation of the elders and princes of Moab and Midian were chosen to journey to Mesopotamia and offer Balaam personal gain in exchange for his services. Upon finding Balaam, the delegation lost no time in delivering to him the message of their king.
We are messengers from Moab and Midian.
Our King Balak sends his personal greeting.
Oh, well, I am duly impressed, yet entirely mystified. I lay claim to no renown. I have no abilities of worth. I am merely a lowly man living in peace. Why does the great Balak, king of Moab, send ambassadors to see me?
Oh, Balaam, sir, your fame as a sorcerer and magician has reached the four corners of the earth. We have need of your divinations and enchantments.
What he's trying to say, Balaam, is simply this. A great multitude of people have come up out of Egypt. They're camped on our borders. They are potentially dangerous.
You speak of the Israelites.
Yes, the great hordes of Israelites, too numerous to count. Oh, they're dangerous, crafty, powerful.
And King Balak said to us, Go find Balaam. Say unto him, These Israelites are too mighty for me. Come therefore, I pray you, and curse these people for me.
Oh, curse them. Curse Israel, me.
Well, they fight with supernatural powers. Why not us?
And Balaam, sir, my king realizes that he whom you bless is blessed. He whom you curse is cursed. You have that power, and that's why we're here.
That's why we have chosen you to deliver us from the Israelites.
You flatter me.
Yet it is true, isn't it? You do have the power of divination and the ability to cast a curse on whomsoever you choose.
Well, I don't wish to brag, but I do have a certain pride in my, shall we say, talents, and I can do certain things that other people find useful and valuable.
Exactly.
Very discreet. Well stated, Balaam.
Slave, open that bag there and pour the contents out upon the table. You shall see, Balaam, just how valuable we consider your special talents. Beautiful, aren't they, Balaam? Diamonds, rubies, emeralds.
Very costly. They were the king's ransom.
You're trying to bribe me?
Bribe you, Balaam? Why, such a thought is entirely foreign to our intention.
Oh, it didn't even enter our minds.
These jewels are yours, Balaam, as a gift.
No strings attached?
Why, of course not.
They're a gift, an outright gift from our king.
All right, I'll accept them. Thanks.
Slave, put the jewels back in the pouch.
I'll do it myself.
And, Balaam, you haven't heard the half. You think those jewels are valuable, and they are. But King Balak has something much more valuable and more satisfying than mere jewels. Yours for the asking.
All I have to do is curse the Israelites.
Why, my dear Balaam, you do my king an injustice. Just come to Moab. That's all the king asks. Come as a friend and an ally, and he will heap reward and honor upon you.
You will be exalted above all the princes and elders of Moab.
If I curse the Israelites.
Why, of course, Balaam, as a friend and ally, you would certainly want to do all in your power, wouldn't you, to protect your fellow Moabites from the invasions of a strange and foreign people?
I don't know.
You accepted the jewels.
You can have them back.
Now, Balaam, he didn't mean it. Did you, Prince Mayfair?
Oh, no. I'm sorry.
The jewels are yours, Balaam, as a gift from King Balak. All my king wishes to know is, will you or will you not come to Moab as a friend and ally?
I can't curse Israel. I mean that I can't give you a definite answer until I have communicated with God and received his approval.
My king bade us get your answer and return immediately. Israel is even now camped on our borders, a constant threat to our... How long will it take to communicate with your God?
Tarry overnight. In the morning, I shall give you a definite reply.
You know very well, Balaam, that the Israelites are blessed by God. Anything you do or say will not change that, not in the slightest.
But, dear, those ambassadors...
God is on Israel's side, and as long as they remain true to him, he will remain on their side, and no adverse power on earth can prevail against them.
I didn't promise
You
them that
profess obedience to the will of God, and at the same time, you hope to comply with the desires of Balaam.
Now, you have no right
Your
to-
first temptation, Balaam. You have visions of grandeur. You're greedy. Those costly gifts and the prospect of honor in Moab have excited your greed to the point where you...
Now, you listen to me. I am the man in this household. I will do as I please without interference from you. For your information, I accepted those gifts on the basis that there were no strings attached, none whatsoever. And as for going to Moab and cursing the Israelites, I told the ambassadors that I would communicate with God and comply strictly with his instructions.
You don't think that God...
I think nothing, only that I shall seek God's instructions and obey them.
Not if you can satisfy your mad desire for gain and honor without obeying
Now,
him.
woman, that's enough. Go and prepare food for our guests. They are princes, royalty, worthy of our best hospitality.
Yes, master.
During the night, a message from God came to Balaam.
Balaam, thou shalt not return to Moab with the ambassadors, neither shalt thou curse the Israelites, for they are blessed.
But I have already accepted the... He's gone. What'll I tell the ambassadors? I'm not going to admit that God refuses to let me curse Israel. There goes wealth and honor right out the window.
Disappointed and angry that his visions of gain and honor had been suddenly dispelled, Balaam was unable to sleep for the rest of the night.
All the wealth of Moab and Midian could be at my command. I could have honor above all men. Might even be next to the king himself.
In the morning, Balaam reluctantly dismissed the ambassadors, but he did not tell them exactly what the message was that he had received from God. Angry that his visions of gain and honor had suddenly vanished, he exclaimed,
Get back to your own land, for the Lord refused to give me permission to go with you.
But what about cursing Israel? Did your God say anything about what
Get back to your own land. I have spoken.
I wonder if Balaam is merely holding out for a higher price.
Probably. He's a greedy one.
I suggest we don't even tell the king that Balaam said his God wouldn't let him come back with us.
Why not?
Because I doubt if it's true. I mean, I really believe that Balaam is holding out for a higher price. I doubt if he even asked his God for permission.
Balaam refused to come? Absolutely refused?
Yes, Your Majesty.
Why?
Who can say?
He's a greedy man, Your Majesty.
You think he is expecting a greater reward for his services?
Could be, Your Majesty.
We have no choice. We'll concede to whatever terms he demands and go once again to Mesopotamia. Take with you more princes, court officers, more valuable gifts. We must secure Balaam's help.
So once again, ambassadors from Moab and Midian set out over the mountains and across deserts for Mesopotamia.
I have a suspicion that Balaam will accept these gifts and curse Israel.
No, I think he'll do anything for the high price we offer.
Greetings, salutations to the great sorcerer Balaam. King Balak sends his personal greetings and well wishes.
And what brings you to Mesopotamia a second time?
I'm bearing gifts from our king. See?
Beautiful.
They are the most beautiful jewels in all of Moab.
And the most valuable.
They're yours, Balaam. Take them.
Such beauty and wealth is a gift to one so humble as I is unthinkable. Your king's price, cursing the Israelites?
My king sends an urgent message.
I thought so.
As a friend and ally, you understand?
The message?
My king commanded me to say to Balaam, let nothing, I pray you, hinder you from coming to me. I will promote you to very great honor and glory. I will do whatsoever you say. Only come and curse these Israelites for me.
That's what I thought. I've already told you that I can't go to Moab. God won't permit it.
You may have anything you wish.
Though Balak were to give me his house full of silver and gold, I could not go beyond the command of the Lord my God to do less or more. But I do wish I could go, but I can't. I can't. I just can't.
Perhaps you can persuade God to change his mind.
Who do you think God is? A man? That he can be persuaded to change? And yeah. Well, all right. I'll try. Remain until morning. I'll communicate with God during the night. Perhaps he will let me go.
Again, in the night season, a message from God came to Balaam.
If the ambassadors come and call you in the morning, you may rise up and go with them. But you shall say to the Israelites only that which I shall give you permission to say.
Oh, thank you. Oh, now I can go to Moab. I'll become rich, famous, powerful.
Balaam! Balaam, wake up!
What?
It's daylight. Time to get up.
Yeah, oh, daylight. Oh, the break of a new day. A new life.
What?
A new day has dawned for us, my dear. A day of wealth, power, fame.
Are Are you awake?
Awake? Oh, yes, awake and sound of mind and body.
This is all beyond me.
No, it's simple, my dear. Last night the Lord appeared to me and gave me permission to go to Moab with the ambassadors. Just think, I will be next to the king himself. I will command respect. Honor and glory shall be mine.
You are greedy, aren't you?
Oh, not at all. When opportunity knocks, I answer, that's all. Yeah, well, my dear, I'll arise and dress. You prepare breakfast, a breakfast fit for a king's right-hand man, me, and the ambassadors who shall attend me.
Ambassadors? What ambassadors?
Oh, the ones from Moab, of course. Now, woman, away will you get breakfast?
They aren't here.
Hail to Balaam, second in power only to the king. Yeah, who isn't here?
They've gone back to Moab.
The ambassadors?
They left before daylight.
Well, you shouldn't have let them go.
I had nothing to do with it. They left without consulting me.
Oh, do you realize what you've done to me? You've spoiled everything. The Lord said that I could go with them only if they called me this morning. Now, they've gone and can't call me. Oh, and I've lost my chance to be wealthy and honored. All because of you. Why did you let them go?
I told you.
Well, I'm not going to give up. I will get that rich reward anyway.
Balaam, I wish you'd stop and reconsider.
Reconsider? Opportunity knocks but once.
Balaam, please, listen.
I don't have time. I'm going to take off and catch up with those ambassadors.
Please.
All right, I'll listen. But hurry up or I won't be able to catch up with them.
Now, you used to be a faithful servant of the living God. You still claim to be. You profess great conscientiousness and integrity to the will of God. On the other hand, you're human. And to want riches and fame is natural. Now, it's awfully hard to turn your back on the rich rewards Balak offers. But with the ambassadors on their way back to Moab, every excuse for complying with the request of Balak has been removed. Temptation is gone. You're free.
Oh, you argue like a woman. I am going to Moab. Goodbye.
Balaam!
Expect me when you see me.
Taking the donkey upon which he was accustomed to ride, Balaam hastily set out on the journey to Moab.
Get up then, get up, or we'll be late for the reward. Oh, maybe even now God has withdrawn his permission for me to go to Moab. Get up, get up. Oh, just think, I'll have everything that I've ever dreamed of. Riches, power, fame. Get up, get up.
Suddenly, and without warning, the donkey turned aside from the highway into a field.
You stupid donkey, get back on the path.
With cruel blows, Balaam beat the donkey.
Get back on the path, beast, now get back there. Oh, you won't, eh? Well, I'll show you. Take that, and that.
Finally, the donkey was brought back out of the path, and once again they continue on their journey toward Moab. The way became rough and strewn with rocks. Finally, the way led through a narrow pathway between two stony walls. Again, the donkey veered to the side, as if to avoid an obstacle in the pathway, crushing Balaam's foot against the stony wall.
No! Oh, you stupid beast! Clutching my foot against the stone. What's the matter with you anyway? Oh, you act as if there's someone in the way stopping you. Well, I'll stop you with this.
Beating the donkey unmercifully, Balaam forced the donkey to proceed.
Yeah, now that's better. And don't stop again or I'll beat you even more. And hurry along now, get up. Let's catch those ambassadors. Seems like everybody and everything is conspiring to keep me from getting to Moab. Get up, get up. But I won't be cheated out of my reward. Get up, get up.
Once again, in a narrow place, where there was no way to turn, either to the right or the left, the donkey suddenly stopped and fell trembling to the ground. Balaam's rage was unbounded, and with a staff he beat the donkey more cruelly than before.
3 times you've delayed me. I've had enough. I'll beat you to death.
What have I done to you? Why have you struck me these 3 times?
Because you made sport of me. I wish I had a sword. I'd kill you.
Am I not your donkey? Have you not ridden me ever since I was a young donkey, until this very day? Have I ever made sport of you before?
No, and I well, you're talking. You can't talk. You're just a dumb animal.
The Lord has opened the mouth of the donkey that she should talk with the voice of a man.
A donkey? And now you, an angel?
Why have you struck your donkey these 3 times?
An angel, standing in the pathway with a drawn sword.
Behold, I have come forth to withstand you, because your way is perverse before the Lord. And the donkey saw me and turned aside before me these 3 times. If she had not turned aside from me, surely just now I would have slain you and let her live.
Oh, angel, I have sinned, for I did not know that thou didst stand in the road against me. Oh, now, therefore, if it is evil in thy sight, I will go back again.
Go with the ambassadors from Moab, but know that you shall speak only the word which I bid you.
Balaam had a bad desire to slay the donkey upon which he rode. He claimed to be a magician. He was on his way to pronounce a curse upon a whole people with the intent to paralyze their strength. Yet, he had not had enough power to slay even a poor, dumb animal, his donkey. Continuing on toward Moab, Balaam's thoughts raced through his mind.
I owe my life to this donkey, and I beat her unmercifully. I claimed to be a prophet with the ability to see the future, yet I was so blinded by covetousness and ambition that I couldn't see an angel in the pathway, plainly visible to my donkey. Greed and covetousness blinds a person to the truth of life, to the beauties of mercy, love, benevolence.
So Balaam continued on to Moab. The king of Moab, being informed of the approach of Balaam, went out with a large retinue to the borders of his kingdom to receive him.
What took you so long to get here? Did I not offer you rich rewards? Did you think that I am unable to fulfill my promise to promote you to high honor?
Oh, king, now that I am here, I have not the power of myself to say anything against Israel. The word that God puts in my mouth, that must I speak.
I have every confidence in you, my man. Come, let us be on our way, Prophet Balaam.
Make way for His Majesty Balak, mighty king of Moab, and his guest, Prophet Balaam. Bow the knee.
With great pomp, the king, with chief dignitaries of his kingdom, escort Balaam to the place of the heathen god Baal, from which the prophet can view the orderly camp of the Israelites spread out in the plains below. How little do the Israelites know of what is taking place so near them. How little do they know of the care of God extended over them by day and by night. Now Balaam speaks to Balak.
Build for me here 7 altars, and provide for me here 7 bulls and 7 rams.
Carefully, Balak follows the instructions given him. When at last all has been made ready.
Now, King Balak, you stand beside your burnt offering, and I will go to one of the high places. Perhaps the Lord will come to meet me. Whatever he shows me, I will tell you.
The nobles and princes of Moab stand with the king beside the sacrifice. All around them is the eager multitude, watching for the return of the prophet. At last he is coming. The people await almost breathlessly for the words that will paralyze forever that strange power that protects the Israelites.
The king of Moab hath brought me from Aram, out of the mountains of the east, saying, Come, curse me, Jacob, and come, defy Israel. How shall I curse whom God hath not cursed? Or how shall I defy whom the Lord hath not defied? For from the tops of the rocks
the nations. Who can count the dust of Jacob and the number of the fourth part of Israel? Let me die the death of the righteous, and let my last end be like his.
Balaam! Balaam! What have you done to me? I have gone to all this trouble to bring you to Moab to curse my enemies, and behold, you have done nothing but bless them.
And Balaam confessed to Balak that he came with the purpose of cursing Israel. But the words he had uttered were directly contrary to the sentiments of his heart. He was constrained to pronounce blessings, while his soul was filled with cursing.
The thief who defeated an army.
Once upon a time, the land of Canaan was occupied by evil and wicked people who worshipped idols. One of their principal cities was Jericho, situated on the banks of a small river near where it emptied into the Jordan River. Jericho was a large and wealthy city. Its palaces and temples were the abode of vice and luxury. It was protected by a huge wall fenced up to heaven. The priests of the city were its leaders and dictators. Their special deity was Ashtaroth, goddess of the moon.
O Ashtaroth, great and beautiful goddess of the moon, we seek thy protection. Guide us, O goddess of the moon, in our dealings with the children of Israel who are camped at our doorstep. Even now.
Arise, Dogen. Come with me.
But your grace, I'm not finished with my prayer to her lordship, goddess Ashtaroth.
We have more important things to do this morning.
More important than morning devotions to Ashtaroth.
Yes, come with me and I'll show you.
Well, after I have finished with Ashtaroth, your grace. Oh, beautiful Ashtaroth, it is with the...
Dogen, who is the high priest of Jericho?
You are, your grace.
Who rules Jericho?
You do, your grace.
And who are you?
One of the lower priests, your grace.
And who stands between goddess Ashtaroth and the people?
You do, your grace, and I am sworn to obey you, your grace. Yet I have a certain duty and loyalty to the goddess Ashtaroth, too.
You actually believe there is an actual god, a goddess of the moon who can hear your prayer and do things for you?
No, your grace.
Well, then why do you insist on this foolishness?
You have to keep up a front, a pretense.
Before the people, yes, but not when you're alone or with another priest.
As you wish, your grace.
Always remember that, Dogen. Someday you'll make a good priest. Remember that gods and goddesses have no power at all. They're wood, stone. Their influence upon the people depends entirely upon how you, as the priest, keep the people fooled.
Yes, your grace.
Now, come along with me and I'll show you something to really get excited about.
Yes, your grace.
Knock louder. She's in there somewhere.
Yes, your grace.
Just a minute.
She sounds perturbed, your grace.
What if she is? She'll calm down soon enough.
Can't you fellas what? Oh, good morning, Your Grace. I'm sorry it took me so long to answer the door, but I didn't realize it was you.
That's quite all right, Rahab.
Won't you come in, Your Grace? Your companion.
Thank you, Rahab.
Perhaps you wish to go upstairs?
Yes, Rahab, we do.
This way, please. Have a seat, Your Grace. Refreshments will be served in just...
No, Rahab. Never mind. We didn't come for that. We'd like to be taken to your courtyard, the one on top of the city wall.
As you wish, Your Grace. This way, please.
Rahab, do you mind leaving us alone?
Not at all, Your Grace. Just call when you
Just a minute, Rahab.
Yes, Your Grace?
I haven't noticed you at temple services of late.
No, sir.
Been too busy to attend, perhaps,
No, Your Grace. No longer do I worship Ashtoreth, goddess of the moon, or any of the other idols of Canaan.
What?
I'm now a worshiper of the true God, the God of heaven.
The God of heaven? Who's he?
Your Grace, he's the God of the Israelites.
Who's the Israelite God? The Israelites who are even now camped on our doorstep?
Yes, Your Grace. If you'll excuse me, I'll leave you two gentlemen alone. Just...
No, Rahab. Stay here with us. You're just the one I want to talk to.
At your service, Your Grace.
Dogan, look over the wall to the southeast of us. You know what lies in that direction?
Yes, Your Grace. Gilgal. The Israelites are camped at Gilgal.
Yes, they were camped at Gilgal.
They're not now.
They're on their way here. Watchers report that the entire Israelite army is marching directly towards Jericho. They'll be here any second now.
Well, there's nothing to fear, Your Grace. The Israelites won't attack us. We're too strong. They'll detour around our city.
I don't believe it. Oh, there's something uncanny about these Israelites. I don't trust them.
Well, have our armed forces been notified?
No, everything's readiness for an attack.
Well, then there's nothing to worry about.
Rahab, you said that you worship this Israelite God. What do you know about them attacking us?
Your Grace, believe me, they will attack, and they will defeat our army and destroy this entire city.
Yeah, how do you know they will?
Their spies told me.
Spies?
2 spies visited my home here a few days ago. I hid them, and they told me of their plans to attack.
That's treason, punishable by death.
I'm not afraid, Your Grace. The God of Israel will take care of me and protect me.
Nonsense.
The 2 spies promised to spare me and my house when they destroy Jericho.
And you believe them.
Their word is sure. That's why at this very minute my father and mother, my brothers and sisters, and all my relatives are in this very house, awaiting the Israelite army, waiting to be saved from the destruction that will fall upon all the rest of Jericho.
Gullible, that's what you are. Believe everything anyone tells you.
She is right, Your Grace.
What? You too?
The God of heaven performs wonders, miracles for his people, the Israelites.
He can't penetrate our thick walls. They are impregnable.
Well, he parted the Red Sea so the Israelites could go across on dry
And
land.
he preserved them 40 years in the wilderness.
And just a few days ago, he parted the waters of the Jordan River.
Yes, I know all these things, but how can they possibly destroy our strong city? Now look at this wall. And our army is second to none. We have horses by the thousand, and iron chariots. No enemy could possibly.
Your Grace, look! The Israelite army, they're coming!
Go ahead, headquarters. Be sure the general has checked our entire defense. Have him check again.
Yes, Your Grace.
Hurry!
Yes, Your Grace.
Rahab, you really do believe that the Israelites will destroy our city?
Yes, Your Grace.
How?
Their God will do it, Your Grace. How? No one can answer
But
that.
gods can't do anything. They're wood and stone. They're lifeless.
Oh, not the like God. He's alive. He created the heavens and all that in them is. And everything exists and has order at his command.
That's not true. It can't be.
Look out there at the Israelites now. Look how orderly they march, in perfect step. Look at those soldiers leading the way. Warriors, every one of them. 7 priests, each with a trumpet, come next.
What is that thing? The thing these men next in line are carrying?
Those aren't men. They're special priests with the sacred duty of carrying the ark.
Oh, the ark. That's what that brilliantly lighted thing is.
The ark. Visible evidence of God's presence.
I don't believe it. It's just a hoax. Thought up to impress the people and to frighten us.
Oh, it's all very real, Your Grace. As truly as those thousands of soldiers following that ark are real. And Your Grace, do you notice how quietly they march? Not a single sound they make except the sound of their feet.
Yes, I noticed. It frightens me. But why?
We'll soon see. Just be patient, Your Grace. marching around the city, Your Grace.
So it appears. I wonder what they're up to.
They've stopped marching.
Priests are blowing trumpets. I'll tell you what this was all about.
Their God is going to deliver Jericho into their hands, Your Grace.
I don't believe it.
Yes, Doggett, what do you want? Grace, the Israelites are coming again.
It's marching like they did yesterday.
In the same order, everything, just like they did yesterday.
Well, get my chariot on the double. I must get to Army headquarters immediately.
Yes, Your Grace.
The very same thing happened again the third day, the fourth, the fifth, and the sixth. Then on the seventh day, very early in the morning.
Your Grace, wake up. Wake up, Your Grace. Your Grace.
What time is it?
It's just barely daylight, Your Grace.
Oh, go away. Leave me this, please.
Your Grace, the Israelites are on the march again.
Well, I don't care what. What? The Israelites are marching again. Huh?
Yes, Your Grace.
So early in the morning?
Yes, Your Grace.
Around Jericho?
Yes, Your Grace.
6 days. They're earlier today. Well, maybe today's the day. Quick, go get my clothes. Hand them to me. Then get me my chariot on the double.
Here you are, Your Grace.
Hurry!
Yes, Your Grace.
The Israelites expect something to happen today. Well, whatever it is, I must stop them. My general must get them
General!
Yes, Your Grace.
What's the meaning of this?
Meaning of what?
The Israelites marching around our city so early in the morning.
Oh, maybe they couldn't sleep. Who knows?
What's that?
Trumpets, Your Grace. The Israelites are blowing them, just like they have for the past 6 days, remember?
Oh, well, now they'll go back to their camp where they belong, huh?
Oh, who cares what they do? I surely don't.
Oh, you aren't worried?
Not the slightest, Your Grace. Our defenses are airtight. A mouse couldn't get through, much less an Israelite soldier.
Their God seems to be able to do just about as he pleases. No one can stop him.
Why, shame on you, Your Grace. What is the beautiful Ashtaroth, goddess of the moon, going to think? You talking like that. And you were high priest, too.
Your Grace, you again. You're always interrupting. What do you want this time? The Israelites are marching around the city again, Your Grace. General, did you hear that? Marching around our city 2 times in one day. Now something's going to happen, I tell you.
Oh, have no fear, Your Grace. Everything is under control. Our soldiers are prepared for any eventuality. The Israelites are not going to conquer our city. They can't. It's impossible.
Well, I hope you know what you're talking about.
Grace, the Israelites have started around for the 3rd time. Huh? General, stop them! Stop these Israelites!
Oh, no, Your Grace.
They started the 4th trip around, Your Grace. 4 times! General, you must do something. These Israelites have to go. For the 5th time, you say? Yes, Your Grace. General, stop these Israelites. That's an order. General, did you hear that? 6 times! For the 6th time today, the Israelites are marching around Jericho.
Oh, calm down, Your Grace. For 6 days they've been marching around our city. 6 times today. And nothing's happened yet, has it?
No.
And it won't either, Your Grace.
Well, then why are they marching around Jericho?
To mystify us. To get on our nerves. No doubt hoping we will do something foolish. Maybe go outside the city walls to engage them in battle. Then they might defeat us. As long as we remain calm and collected, we're in no danger.
Oh, well, yes, General, I believe you're right.
Your Grace, the Israelites... Yes, Dogem, I know. The Israelites are marching around Jericho again for the 7th time today. Well, let them march. Who cares? But, Your Grace, they... Dogem, you worry for nothing. Be calm and collected like I am. But, Your Grace, there is something to worry about. What, Dogem? The Israelite God. He promised that he would deliver us into the hands of the Israelites. And their God always keeps his word. Impossible, Dogem. Impossible.
course, yet I do not understand.
Neither do I, Father. But I do have confidence and faith in the God of heaven. And somehow he will deliver us from these evil and wicked people.
I know, Rahab, yet I do not see.
Father, look. Listen. The marching stops. Oh, something wonderful, terrible is about to happen. I know it, Father. I can feel it. The trumpets.
This time they holler and make noise as well as blow the trumpets. I wonder why.
The time has come, Father. Watch.
Was Jericho falling?
Harm shall come to us, Father.
Yes, the great walls of Jericho fell to the ground.
Rahab,
Solomon,
come quickly, Rahab. Joshua said that...
Solomon, I want you to meet me, Father.
How do you do, sir?
Father, this is the young spy I told you about. One of the two that I think in the stacks of flags.
Glad to meet you, Solomon.
Joshua intends to have Jericho burned immediately. He instructed me to get you out of the city before it's set afire.
You're ready, Solomon.
Yes, young man, we're ready. We've been looking for you, waiting. Now here you are to save us.
My mother's here, my brothers and sisters, all my relatives too.
Everyone in this house is to be saved. Get them all. We must go.
They're waiting at the back steps. Come along, Solomon.
The flames of the burning city of Jericho lit up the sky for miles around. Finally, they faded and died. There was nothing more to burn. There was much rejoicing in the camp of Israel.
Fellow Israelites, silence! Silence before the Lord! We have just experienced a great victory. Jericho is ours. Soon all the land of Canaan will be ours. Our next conquest will be Ai. I will send spies to Ai immediately. As soon as we have their report, we will march against Ai.
Everything appears to be in order. Complete harmony seems to reign in the camp of Israel. But such is not the case. In one tent, look, dear.
Garment. It's beautiful.
It's for you, dear.
Me, this beautiful girl. Oh, Achan, where did you get this garment?
That isn't all. Look at this.
Gold, silver. Achan, how did you come by all this?
It doesn't matter how I got them.
Did you steal these things?
Steal them?
You took them from Jericho, didn't you?
What if I did?
What if you did? Joshua expressly forbid anything to be taken. Achan, you'll be punished for this.
Punished?
You're a thief, Achan, a common, ordinary thief. Well, listen to my advice and take them back. Give them to Joshua.
Give them to Joshua? Not on your life.
You'll be caught and punished.
Oh, nothing of the sort. I'm going to hide them. No one will even know I stole them. I know. I'll dig a hole right here in the tent and hide them there.
People of Israel, the spies brought back a good report. Ai is a very small village with scarcely any defenses. I will take 3,000 men and march against Ai tomorrow morning. People, quiet. Please, silence before the Lord. People of Israel, as you know, our army of 3,000 was utterly defeated by the small Ai army. What you do not know is why we were defeated. I shall tell you. In the first place, we went into this battle without first seeking God's sanction and blessing. the second place, there is a sin in our midst. A thief defeated us. Because of a thief, 36 of our valiant warriors now lay dead on the field of battle. I do not know who the thief is. He is one of you. Whoever he is, if he will come forward now, if he will confess now, there is still hope for his salvation. Very well. If the thief will not confess of himself, we will find out who he is. We will draw lots. The thief will be discovered.
Achan, hadn't you better confess?
No, they'll never discover it was me.
People of Israel, the casting of lots discloses that the guilty man is a member of the tribe of Judah.
I plead with you, Achan. Confess your sin before it's too late.
No, why should I? I tell you, they'll never discover it was me. Even if the lots should point to me, how are they ever going to prove it? They'll have to produce the evidence, and it's safely hidden under the tent.
People of Israel, once again we have drawn lots. The evidence this time indicates the guilty person is a member of the Zerite family.
I think you're making a great mistake, Achan.
You worry too much.
But you are guilty, and you know the penalty of guilt, don't you?
Forgive me. After all, I only stole a garment and a few pieces of silver and gold.
Mom, doesn't matter. You did steal. The penalty for stealing a little is as great as stealing a lot. Why don't you confess?
No.
People, my heart is sad. We are drawing close to the thief, yet he, whoever he is, does not confess. This time the lot points a finger at the household of Zabdi.
It's getting closer and closer to you, Achan.
The next drawing will reveal the guilty man himself. Will the guilty one not yet come forward and confess? Very well. We will proceed with the drawing.
Achan, I plead with you. Confess.
No.
You'll be punished.
Joshua will have mercy upon me.
Joshua will obey the law. And you know what the law says. Anyone found guilty of stealing is to be stoned to death.
Maybe I had better confess.
It's too late now. Joshua has already made the drawing.
People of Israel, I hold in my hand the name of the guilty person. Achan, son of Zerah, come stand before the Lord.
Here I am, Joshua, sir.
Achan, my son, do you realize that your sin, that your theft has caused much grief and suffering in Israel?
Yes, sir.
Do you realize that you, because you coveted and stole, caused the utter defeat of our army?
Indeed, I have sinned against the Lord God of Israel. I saw among the spoils of Jericho a goodly garment, and 200 shekels of silver, and a wedge of gold. I coveted them, and I took them. They are now under the earth in the midst of my tent.
Achan, my son, you have confessed your sin, but you have delayed too long in doing it. You must be punished. It is my unpleasant duty to pronounce the judgment of God upon you. You, your wife and family, your household, everything that belongs to you, even your tents and flocks, everything, will this day be removed far from camp. You will be taken to Achor, the valley of trouble. The wages of sin must be paid. conquering Canaan.
The northern part of Canaan was occupied by many and strong peoples who became terrified at the success which had attended Israel in South Canaan. In the north, on the shores of Lake Miriam, was the city of Hazor. Now Hazor was a very strongly fortified city reigned over by King Jabin. And King Jabin called together all the kings of northern Canaan and suggested a confederacy to protect their lands against the onslaught of the Israelite hosts.
But Joshua and his army seemed to win battles regardless of the odds against them.
I doubt that we can do anything against them either.
No, gentlemen, let us be calm, keep our wits about us, and plan intelligently.
Calm? When our very lives are threatened?
Oh, no, I doubt if things are quite that bad.
Has anyone at all won a single battle from Joshua?
Well, no.
I think we should surrender it.
Now, gentlemen. Aren't you forgetting one important fact? We are a long way from Joshua's headquarters. We are almost inaccessible to him and to his army. Also, we are practically impregnable to an attack.
Impregnable? That's what Jericho thought too, with their strong walls and fortified position. But Joshua conquered them anyway.
No. This is the wrong attitude, gentlemen, the wrong approach. If we don't think we can win, we can't.
How can we win against the strength of Joshua and his mighty men?
Well, we certainly can't by a defeatist attitude. We're doomed. Our countries are in real danger. We will be defeated unless we band together, fight together, stick together, and do the very best we can together to defeat Joshua. At least we'll have an outside chance to win.
You're right, of course, Jabin. And I'm sure that all of us agree that we must stick together against the common enemy. I herewith pledge my country and my fighting force to the common good.
Yes, now we're getting somewhere. In unity there is strength. Hurrah for the Confederacy of Northern Canaan! Now, our first order of business is to decide upon a Confederate leader and the place to establish headquarters.
Now, we are all kings of Northern Canaan, and as kings are qualified to lead armies to battle. Yet I, for one, am in favor of King Jabin being the leader of our combined forces. He has displayed calmness, a strength of purpose, and unflinching courage in all this.
Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you. I shall certainly do all in my power to turn the tide of battle against Joshua. But now let's get down to cases. With your permission, I should like to establish headquarters right here in Hazor. Certainly there's no better fortified city in all Canaan than Hazor. It is also my suggestion that we let Joshua bring the war to us. We will let him attack us. Then we will have a definite advantage. Are we all agreed on this? Now, unless my information is in error, our combined forces will far outnumber the forces of Joshua.
That is correct, Your Majesty.
And we will have well-armed and trained soldiers, while Joshua's army is made up mostly of citizens, untrained, poorly armed.
Your Majesty, I think that would have been completely true a few months ago, even weeks. But Joshua has conquered all the nations of southern Canaan, which means that they have probably confiscated many weapons of war, which they are now armed with.
Yes, that's true. However, our main advantage will be in our horses and our chariots, the greatest weapon of war ever invented. I understand Israel has no horses and chariots at all.
Well, they certainly have captured horses and chariots from the southern Canaan nations.
Yes, but do you know what they've done with those horses and chariots?
Put them to good use, probably.
They burned the chariots and lamed the horses.
Are they crazy?
They did it at the command of their God, supposedly so that they wouldn't put their trust in horses or chariots, but in the Lord their God.
The more I hear about those Israelites, the more sure I am that properly organized and led, our combined forces can whip them.
Down with the Yes, and now, gentlemen, let's get down to specific plans for the protection of our respective countries. To start with, our headquarters here in Hazor,
Meanwhile, at Gilgal, the camp headquarters of Israel, Joshua was addressing his great army of mighty men and warriors.
Mighty men of Israel,
In your hands rests the final conquering of Canaan. Although most of Canaan is now in our possession, there remains northern Canaan and some of the western nations to yet depossess. By far the most formidable enemy yet to cope with is the Confederacy of northern Canaan under the leadership of Jabin, king of Hazor. They are now camped by Lake Miriam beside the fortified city of Hazor. They form by far the largest army we have yet faced. Their soldiers are in number as the sands of the sea. But the Lord God of Israel said unto me, Be not afraid because of them, for tomorrow about this time will I deliver them up, all slain before thee.
And Joshua and all the mighty men of Israel marched against King Jabin of Hazor, and all the allied kings with him. God delivered Hazor into the hand of Joshua, and one by one the mighty cities of the kings of the north fell to Israel, and Joshua became master of Canaan. Then the land rested from war. Even though the power of Canaan had been broken, there remained on the west coast the Philistines and the Sidonians, dangerous and continuous enemies of Israel. And scattered throughout all the land were bands of peoples who were still to be subdued. It was the duty of each tribe to fully subdue the people in its own inheritance. Moses, before his death upon Mount Nebo, had fixed the outer boundary of the land. Now it became Joshua's lot to divide the land among the 12 tribes of Israel. He was to be assisted in this duty by Eleazar the high priest, and one prince from each tribe, formally appointed by Moses. Joshua himself, of the tribe of Ephraim, was one of these princes. Also Caleb, of the tribe of Judah. 2 of the tribes, Gad and Reuben, with half the tribe of Manasseh, had received their inheritance before crossing the Jordan River. They had, however, furnished their portion of armed men for the conquest of Canaan. For years they had fought bravely by the side of their brethren. Now the time had come for them to get back unto the land of their inheritance, where they had left their families, loved ones, and possessions. As they had united with their brethren in the conflicts, so they had shared the spoils. Consequently, they returned home with much gold, riches, cattle, with brass, iron, and much raiment.
It is with anxious heart that I witness your departure for the land beyond the Jordan. You will be far from the sanctuary. Strong will be the temptations in your isolated and wandering life to fall into the customs of the heathen tribes that dwell on your borders. I plead with you, be of strong courage and remain true to the precepts of God's immortal law.
Caleb, of the tribe of Judah, was one of the princes appointed by Moses to aid Joshua in making proper and fair distribution of the land of promise. Now, before the actual distribution began, Caleb came forward with a special claim.
Greetings, Caleb.
Salutations, Joshua.
Have a seat and visit a while.
I don't wish to bother you, Joshua. You're a busy man.
No more busy than you, I'm sure. And I think we'll do a short reprieve from duty to reminisce, don't you? After all, Caleb, we are the 2 oldest men in Israel. You and I are the only ones yet alive who actually came out of Egypt.
I don't feel old.
How old are you, Caleb?
85, Joshua.
Now, you're still a young man compared to me.
You're only a few years older than 85.
Oh, a few years can make a great deal of difference at our ages.
Perhaps so, but I wouldn't know yet. I am as well and strong as I was 45 years ago when Moses sent me, along with you and 10 others, to spy out the land of Canaan. Remember?
As if it were yesterday. We were camped at Kadesh, only 11 days from Mount Horeb, but a short distance from the borders of Canaan. The people, as usual, did not trust God or Moses and insisted that spies be sent to survey the land. A ruler from each tribe was chosen. Oh, how well I remember that clear morning when Moses bade us go into Canaan and observe his people.
You 12 young men have been chosen by direction of God to go into Canaan as spies. Bring back a report of its people, whether they are strong or weak, few or many. Observe the land, its situation, its natural advantages, and the productivity of the soil. Bring back also some of the fruit of the land. Now go and survey the entire land, from the southern to its northern borders.